If you import products like phones, fabrics, machinery, or electronics from China, this video could save you money, a lot of money. Something happened this week that didn't quite trend on most social media platforms, but might become one of the biggest financial shifts in modern history. For the first time ever, African businesses can pay Chinese suppliers directly in yuan without US dollars slowing things down or eating into your margins. Payments that used to take 3 days can now clear in hours. Fees that quietly killed your profits can drop by 30 to 50%. And the global power balance between China and the United States just tilted again. So today we are breaking down how Africa just plugged into China's financial brain, why the West is nervous, and what this moment could mean for your business, your wallet, and Africa's financial freedom. To understand why this move is shaking boardrooms from Johannesburg to Washington, we need to look at the system Africa has been stuck in for decades. Let's say you run a business in Ghana or Kenya, Nigeria, or South Africa. You import electronics, machinery, raw materials, and most of your suppliers are in China. But here's the strange part. Even though your trade is with China, your money still takes a long stopover in the United States. The payment moves from Africa to a US correspondent bank, to China, to your supplier. Africa has been paying billions in unnecessary costs for a system that wasn't built for us. Now, imagine cutting out that middleman. Imagine paying China directly in China's own currency at a fraction of the cost. That imagined future, it just became reality. On November 20th, Standard Bank, Africa's biggest bank, became the first bank on the continent to connect directly to Chinese cross-border interbank payment system known as CIPS. CIPS is China's high-speed money highway. Think of it as Beijing's answer to SWIFT, but optimized for yuan's payments. Here's what this changes. No more US dollar detour, no more expensive double conversions, no more long waits for correspondent banks, no more margin losses due to exchange volatility, and dramatically improved cash flow for African businesses. If you import from China, this directly affects your bottom line. If you run a factory, this helps you scale faster. If you operate in e-commerce or retail, this gives you better pricing power. But wait, the real story isn't just financial. Some analysts see this as Africa drifting towards China's sphere of influence, especially at a time when the United States is focused inward under America First politics. Others say that the US simply hasn't shown Africa enough interest or consistency, and China is filling that vacuum. And beyond that, there are people who see this moment as a turning point. The moment Africa stops waiting for Western approval and starts choosing systems that serve African interests. So, let's dig into 3 major viewpoints shaping this debate. The first perspective is straightforward. China gets things done. While Western institutions can take years of studies, conditions, and negotiations, China often builds in months. We're talking roads, railways, solar farms, industrial parks, fiber networks. To many African leaders, China didn't just talk partnership, it delivered infrastructure. And now China is delivering financial infrastructure. To them, CIPS isn't a threat, it's liberation. It means cheaper imports, faster payments, more predictable trade, less reliance on the dollar, and smoother business operations. In their eyes, China is giving Africa exactly what Africa has been asking for: practical, fast-moving, financially beneficial tools. This camp says Africa doesn't owe loyalty to the West. Whoever helps us grow, we work with them. The second group is more cautious. They warn that China holds a significant portion of Africa's debt. They point out that Chinese loans lack transparency and that in many African markets, cheap Chinese imports have overwhelmed local industries. They see a pattern where Africa exports raw materials and imports finished Chinese goods, replicating an old colonial dynamic. They worry that deeper financial links like CIPS could increase dependency. Be careful, they say. Financial rails become political rails. This group isn't anti-China, they are anti-over-reliance. They believe Africa should use Chinese capital, but with diversification always in mind. Then there's the third and fastest growing school of thought. This group says Africa should not choose China. Africa should not choose America. Africa should choose Africa. They argue China offers speed and financing. The US offers rule of law, financial systems, and advanced markets. Africa can benefit from both. And African institutions like AFCFTA and PAPS should grow in parallel. To them, Standard Bank connecting with CIPS isn't a shift toward China, it's a shift towards options. They say the more payment rails Africa has to access, the more bargaining power Africa gains. This is Africa's strategic non-alignment era. For almost 80 years, the US dollar has been the backbone of global finance. And even when two non-American countries trade, settlement often happens in dollars. This gave the US immense global leverage. Sanctions worked because the US controlled the pipes. Trade slowed because dollar liquidity dried up. And Africa often felt squeezed by a system it didn't design. And now, the world is becoming multipolar. China is rising. India is rising. The Gulf nations are rising. Africa is integrating under AFCFTA. And the idea that a single currency should dominate global trade, that idea is fast fading away. CIPS is the part of that shift. Let's bring it back to where we started. That's you. If you run a business that buys anything from China, your costs may drop. If you import machinery, your payments will be faster. If you're a retailer, your cash flow improves. If you're an exporter, you may gain new pricing advantages. If you're a freelancer, this opens more global currency options to you. And if you're an investor, this signals where Africa's next opportunities will boom. We are talking trade, logistics, fintech, manufacturing, and African payment infrastructure. This isn't theory. This is money you can feel. So let's go back to the big question. Is China replacing the United States in Africa? Some believe yes. Some say no. But maybe that's the wrong question. The real question we should be asking is this: will Africa allow itself to be shaped, or will Africa shape its own destiny? Standard Bank connecting to CIPS is not Africa choosing sides. It's Africa choosing speed, choice, options, bargaining power, and a financial future built on African priorities. The world is changing. Money is moving faster. And today, Africa is no longer waiting for permission. Africa is building the rails and choosing the routes. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit like, share with a friend, and subscribe. And then tell me in the comments, should Africa lean east, lean west, or stay strategically non-aligned? See you in the next deep dive.